Hey, I just want to pick your brains a little bit about the boards and sort of board design. I know you've been doing a lot of work with the custom over sort of, the last couple of years. A little bit about rocker. So rocker, I always explain it's like the banana bit of the board, huh?
Yeah, the rocker curve is the curve that the board has on the bottom. If you look from the nose to the tail, it's that curve, and that's a very important part of the board, because that will pretty much mean how fast the board can go in a way, and how it turns. So it's a very crucial thing to have.
So what sort of situation would you have when you'd have a lot more, say, nose rocker on a board, or is there certain conditions? Is it onshore or down the line, or?
Yeah, there's a lot of combination of things, but generally, if you're sailing somewhere down the line where the wind is side off and you don't really have any issues getting a lot of speed, you can have more curve, more rocker, because it will be a little bit slower, but it'll turn a lot tighter. So if you have a nice clean wave, it will work good that way. And if you're sailing more European conditions with a lot of current and side on, you want to have a straighter board generally, because that will get you going faster and easier to go upwind. It just be a faster board.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Absolutely perfect. Now, if we throw in the concave and like the double concave, so if you could explain a little bit about that, that'd be absolutely perfect for.
Yeah, the double concave, it's one type of bottom shapes that we use. There's a lot of different ones. There are V, single concaves, double concaves. You can mix a V with a concave. And the double concave, it's one that it's been working well for us at Goya. It's one that I use pretty much on most locations, and I really like it because it kind of helps cut the chop a little bit, and it's a fast controlled bottom. But as well, it has a lot of hold on the wave, especially when you're going front side. It feels really good off the rail, so you'll be pretty much shaped kind of like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a great combination of bottom shape to use on big waves, down the line conditions, as it holds a lot, but as well cuts the chop well, and gives a lot of control when you're sailing fast and flying before a jump or something.
Oh, perfect. Another thing that really sort of people look at and freak out a little bit is there's so many options of boards with thrusters, a single fin, the quads. Now I know you're quite the custom is a quad. You always use it as quad or ever a twinser?
I've played with twinsers over a year or two ago, but I kind of ended up heading back to the quads because I just feel like if they are set up right, they are pretty similar speed of a twinser. Yeah. I don't think they lose much at all. But from my experience, they go upwind a lot better, and they have a lot more hold off the top. And that's why I ride it most of the time. I think a twinser makes sense as well, especially if you're riding really small waves and really straight side on onshore winds.
Yeah.
Where you don't really need that much hold. You're just kind of trying to do a quick bottom turn and keep your speed. That's where I was playing with a twinser a couple of years ago, and it was fun, but generally I really enjoyed the hold that the quads give and the potential that they have to go upwind and the control on the water.
And ever play around with thrusters, or?
I haven't much. I've tried them before.
Where do you see them come into play and sort of?
I feel like they are fun on side-on conditions where you have a lot of wind on your sail.
Yeah. And
you just want the board to pivot a little bit more, to go up and down and break the line. I feel like that's where I had most fun with thrusters. But I went back to the quad because I feel like the quad, you can wave ride with a lot more speed and keep a lot more control, especially on fast waves and point breaks like Cape Verde or Maui. I like the quad better when you put the board on rail, but I feel like the thruster, it's also very good, especially on those bump and jump side on where you have power on your sail and you just kind of stepping on the board and breaking the line a lot. Then I like them.
Cool. So going back a bit to the old school with the old single fin, you ever use a single fin anymore, or is that?
I haven't used it recently, but I really like single fins. They are very fast, they are controlled. And if I would sail somewhere only for jumping, I would probably choose a single fin.
Oh, yeah.
Because they are so fast and they, you can go really high on them. I like the feeling of planing straight as well. but they are a little bit harder to wave ride for sure. They are a little stiffer and they definitely don't turn as tight. So that's why I just go full-time quads, because most places you jump, you also ride.
And same in Jaws, use a quad?
I use the quad there as well, yeah.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah, same type of fins as anywhere else, just a tiny bit bigger.
Sick. Yeah. Cool, and then moving on to deck plate position. Do you ever change your deck plate position? Ever go forward or back?
I move it a bunch, and I usually try to go 1-2 cm back or 1-2 cm forward. And it's very hard to say a place because every person weighs different and they ride different sails. But generally, I think if you're riding a really clean down the line spot, or if you want to just turn really tight, you can have it a little bit more further back theoretically. If you are kind of going a little bit out of control or riding somewhere where you have too many chops, maybe you go a little bit more forward. But again, that's really personal, and even the sail that you have puts a different weight on the board. So I think the only way to really know is testing it, each person on each board, and really choosing for yourself, because it's hard for someone else to say it. But I think generally, if you're kind of going out of control, you move it forward a little bit, and if you want to loosen up the board and make the board turn a little bit easier, you can go a little bit further back.
And this much, like not one extreme to another?
Much, like 1 cm, 2 cm, just slowly move it.
I think that's a lot to do with a lot of windsurfing. Each time you tune everything, it's tiny little like adjustments, you know. Everybody goes wow to one extreme to another, you know, and it's just that small little movement.
Yeah, maybe at first you can have a little bit more extremes, and then it will be pretty black and white if you like more further forward or more further back, and once you know that, then you start trimming it with smaller numbers until you find...
Hey, something that I wanted to ask, do you ever get a marker out and just mark like your fin position and your deck plate, or is it just all in your head?
I do mark my fin position sometimes. The deck plate I don't so much, because I move the deck more than I move the fins.
Yep.
But I don't. I kind of know the boards that I ride.
Yep.
And then I just look at it in relation to my foot strap, and I kind of save it on my head where I like it.
Cool, well that's moving on to foot straps. I did notice on the Goya Customs, you have quite a wide stance, like that comes out of the production. You know, what do you recommend on the wide stance? Like, would you have a narrow stance for say jumping or riding, or a wider stance in different conditions?
First, talking about each single foot strap, I used to have really wide and really big straps, and recently I've been changing more and more of making them narrower but keeping them tall.
Yeah.
And I like to have my foot really far in the strap, as far as it goes, so I have more control over the board. And I feel like if they are narrow on the sides and tall, they are easy to release, but you have a really good control when you're sailing overpowered on choppy before setting up for a jump, because whether they are like wider and lower, I really just feel like it's even scarier, because one foot can come out at any time and the other foot can stay in. So some people say, oh, use them wide so they get out easily, but then if you're sailing with a lot of speed, it just kind of takes so much control away that I don't feel safe that way. So I prefer to have them narrower. And I always, when I get a board, I start trimming it from the back foot strap.
Okay.
And I try to find a number from the tail where it feels comfortable, meaning that it's not too far back, that the board is kind of like the nose too high or spinning out too much, but not too far forward that I can't turn it. You find a good balance. And then after that, I base my front foot. And usually if I am on a place where the wind is really strong and it's more wave riding conditions, say at Hokipa, I like to have my stance around 19.5 inches.
Yeah.
And in the Canaries, that it's more side on and you're trying to jump more, I go between 19.5 and 19, sometimes a tiny bit narrower, especially if the wind's lighter, because if you have a narrower stance, I feel like it's a little bit easier to get planing and to go faster. But the wider stance, I prefer it for wave riding. I feel like it's more forgiving, it's easier to land moves and nicer to bottom turn, I think.
And just like, you know, for your tackers and stuff, it just, as you said before, it kind of brings you over
Yeah,
a little
your
bit.
center of gravity, it's a little bit lower because you can bend your knees a little more, and I feel more comfortable that way for wave riding, but again, that's very personal.
Yeah.
Each person likes a different
yeah,
way.
for sure. I think that's a lot to do. It's, you've got to feel comfortable, huh? And
Yeah.
like, you know, some people, like, you can imagine someone 5 foot tall with your stance, it's like super wide, you know? So
Yeah.
it's got to be kind of, I think, a lot to do with windsurfing. When you're comfy, and that's when you're really going to learn. So it is a personal preference,
And
for
also
sure.
the style that each person has, the type of boards that they ride and types of sails. It's not, I don't think there is one way that
Yeah.
can work. I think people can make a lot of different setups work well, you know.
So you'd recommend trying around different positions and stuff?
Yeah, I definitely recommend trying around, but if I can say anything, I'll start from the back foot strap.
Yeah.
Try to find a place from the tail where the board feels well balanced, and then base your stance out of that, I would say.
Okay, nice. Cool. Fins, like, again, the box, they get much more smaller. You could, you know, a lot less room for adjustment. What sort of situations where would you adjust your fins, moving them forward or back?
Well, generally, if you have your fins further back, you have a bit more lift, and it's maybe a little bit easier to get planing and go upwind, gives the board more control, but it also makes it a little harder to turn. If you have your fins further forward, the board gets freer and easier to turn, but maybe not as good to go upwind and things like that. So it's all about each person finding what they're looking for
And the conditions.
and their balance for their
Yeah.
weight and everything.
Yeah, yeah, and what sort of conditions they're sailing
Yeah.
in too, huh?
If you want a bigger wave, you usually want your fins a little bit further back than on a smaller wave.
And then onshore, forward to turn a bit
Yeah.
tighter, huh?
Again, it's very personal, but generally that's how it
Yeah, so
works.
forward for more movability and then just back for more drive
For
and
more control.
yeah, perfect. Cool.